I don't know if we have a quorum. I guess we do. One. Yeah,
Yeah,
We
Bob's
do.
with Bill. Yeah.
right.
And Tina's on, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're all set.
I'm
Hey,
here.
Tina.
Hi.
Sure. So I'll call the meeting of the new elementary school building committee to order at 5:32 p.m. And welcome everybody, number one. And I guess we'll go right into the agenda, which is public comment. So don't everybody sign in at once here, or, raise their hand at once, but well, I guess we're going to bypass that.
Yeah, I don't think we have any public comments. I don't see any hands raised right now.
We're going to be YouTube sensations. We're going to be able to monetize this thing before we're done. Yeah,
You have to appoint Tina as acting on behalf of,
Diana.
yeah,
Okay. I will appoint Tina. Tina, how do you say your last name? Swajowski?
Wachowski.
Swajkowski. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I should know better with my name. So I'll appoint Tina in place of Diana. How's that? All right, good. I was going to ask you how to do that, Billy, so I'm glad you mentioned it. So item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. We have both May 16th and May 18th available. So I guess we can take them one at a time. So anybody, does everybody feel comfortable approving the minutes from the 16th, number 1?
Yes.
And if so, can somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the what,
On the
16th?
Yeah.
16th, yeah, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Raquel,
All right.
can you see everybody? So you know who's making the motions, or do you want me to repeat?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and similarly for the 18th, anybody want to make a motion on the 18th?
No, I have comments to make. There
Sure.
are some things missing from the minutes that I think needs to be in there.
Okay, well, let's make a motion and get it second, and then we can have discussion if you want.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
I don't know the proper rules on how to edit the minutes, so.
No, that's fine. We've got you.
If it's a bunch of stuff, maybe we should just have her email it to Raquel, and we could just do it the next time. It's only a suggestion. If it's only a few things, then
It's
easy.
2 little paragraphs. I mean, well, yeah, I don't know how you want to do it, whatever the committee wants.
Yeah,
So-
well, why don't we give it a shot? And then if it gets too much, we'll do the old email thing. How's that?
Okay.
All
All
right.
right, so what do we have to do? What's the procedure here?
So we'll just, we'll have somebody make a motion to approve the minutes of May 18th. How's that?
I make a motion to approve minutes of the 18th.
Bob made a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, second,
I'll second.
and then we'll open it for discussion. And Sharon, go. for it.
Okay, go ahead. All right, before DRA and after JCJ, we need to put in there that Sharon expressed concerns about JCJ and the community's negative impressions of the high school, and hiring them would send not a positive message to the town. Sharon, and then there was a discussion about the high school and its shortcomings and its positive and negative things. I don't know how you want to shorten that. And then we need to say that Sharon was concerned that JCJ's design aesthetic does not suit an elementary school within Madison's fabric or context. And that Graham dismissed Sharon's comments, saying that any good architect does not have a design aesthetic, but designs to what the client wants. And I think that needs to be in there. And then after DRA, there was extra time, and Graham asked DRA if they had anything else to add. And they turned it on to the committee and asked the committee if each member would please list the 3 things they thought were important for this project. And we went around and did that. And I think it's important that we put that in the minutes too, and what everybody said. I don't remember what everybody said, but I think we need to ask and get it in there. I said aesthetics, program and budget. And I know Graham said aesthetics first because he shot me a side eye when he did it. So you will have to ask him what his other two are, but I think we should get that information into the minutes.
Go ahead, Billy.
I think that we should discuss minutes. Minutes, the key to minutes are the motions and what the committee takes a position on. Like, I make a motion to fire Bill McMahon, Bob seconds it, and all in favor.
I know, but there are other things in there that were put in the minutes that weren't like that I think this is just as important. So it was stuff that was discussed. I think it should be in there. And we don't have to give every little word, but I think it's important.
I can see to whatever the committee wants. My point only is that the minutes could be as much or as little as the committee wants. I think if you're gonna put all those details in, then my suggestion is that we put them in writing and then we have them review. When I asked Raquel to generalize the minutes and not take them verbatim and put all that stuff in, that's a whole nother kind of minute.
No, I realize that, but I mean, I really do think that it shortchanges DRA by not saying that they asked us what we thought. I think that's a really positive thing that they did. And I think our answers are important. I think cutting that out of the minutes is doing a disservice for our selection of architects and to DRA and to us as a committee to be held responsible for what we're doing.
No problem. My request then would be is that everyone put in what they think should be in them, and then we can act on those. I don't think that we could take all of that information you just put down and have.
It's not a lot. It's 2 paragraphs.
I don't think we should be doing this without Graham. I think we
Yeah,
should push it. Yeah, it's not right because he's not there and there are comments about him. I think in the interest of
That's
moving
fine.
forward.
Disappointed
Yeah,
he wasn't here, actually.
I totally respect your right to say everything, Sharon. So it's just a matter of having consensus on what we put in the minutes.
Okay.
No, I agree.
Okay.
So why don't we do this? Will the motioner and the seconder agree to rescind the motion, and then we'll take it up at a different time? How's that?
I'll make the motion
Yes.
that we rescind it and take it up at a different time.
Okay. And whoever seconded,
I did.
Okay, who first did it? Was that Sharon?
Bob.
Did you?
I said it
Bob
first. and
Bob
Bob-
rescinds his motion.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
And then
that's
I'll
fine.
second it, or Woody seconds it, whatever.
And if you want to, we can take it up at another time, but put together what you want, Sharon, and we'll.
Okay, that's fine. I have it written out. I can type it up all nice and pretty if you like.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so moving right along.
Sorry, George, I
Oh.
do have a comment here from Seth Klaskin. If you would like me to, okay.
Sure.
Hi, all. I'm just listening into this discussion about the minutes, and I would just respectfully point out that while I agree with Bill 100% that meetings can be a little bit more, minutes can be a bit more minimalist, and I also agree with the group that, the discussion that the group can decide to make them more than a little minimalist. I would just point out that some of the liaisons and also some of the public were inadvertently left out from the first couple of meetings. So I think at least for those 2 meetings, there could be an effort to depart from a minimalist approach, just so that we have a fair representation of what was covered at those meetings. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. Point taken. Thank you. Okay. So moving right along. So the next step is to review the RFP, and I'm trying not to be too wordy, but here's my take on it. We've got an RFP that's had a lot of input from a lot of folks on the committee, certainly, and a lot of good input, the last few days and before. So Adam has done a great job compiling everything
He has.
and putting it together. And kudos to him for sorting through it all. I think what we've got is an excellent framework so far. We can certainly wordsmith it a little bit, but all I'm requesting is we don't get hung up in the weeds at this point, because everything from this point on is a negotiation with the firms that we end up talking to. So, you know, some will come, some will go, some things will stay in, some might go out. When the lawyers get a hold of the contracts, there's going to be some changes, that kind of thing. So we should get everything in it we want, but all I'm asking is we don't make this a, you know, prolonged meeting to argue over semantics of wording. That's all. And other than that, we'll allow Adam to kind of walk us through, and then anybody who has a say, please say what you feel. That's what we're here for, and we'll try to move it forward.
All right, so good evening, everyone. So with regard to the RFP, what I'll do is I'll share a number of items, a number of documents up on the screen, and we'll just walk through some of them. The critical items will be the calendar, which I'll show here first, and then the body of the RFP itself, which has included some of the updated thoughts from Woody with regard to sustainability, as well as some thoughts from Sharon with regard to design intent, and those are baked in there. So I can scroll through the RFP, highlight some of those items to ensure that everything that the committee is focused on is in the RFP. And then with the ultimate goal being a vote from the committee tonight to push the RFP out to the shortlisted architects. I also have, you know, the AIA contract backups, but as George alluded to, a lot of those items will be fleshed out and revised with the winning bidder. The more intent for the AIA contracts is to ensure that or to minimize surprises with the architectural firms with regard to the form and function of the contracts as we anticipate them to be finalized. So again, major focus today is on the RFP body. That will be part and parcel to the actual AIA contract. So if it's in the RFP, it'll be in the contract. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here, and please forgive me if not to make it too seasick with the amount of screens we have to go through. So just first off, high level overview. We're here tonight on the 23rd, reviewing and approving the RFP. Presuming the committee is comfortable, we'll issue the RFP the day after, or Wednesday, once it gets finalized. We have the approved revised ed specs. I believe that's still targeted for tomorrow. That has already been issued to the shortlisted architects to give them a preview of what's going on. There will be an addendum to the RFP issued, so if there's any clarifications that come out of that process, that can be baked in at that time. Target at the end of the week for Chuck and myself to just have a short list architect call to give them the same highlights, basically what I'm giving you tonight, so that way they don't get lost in the hundreds of pages of appendices and whatnot, and see some of the issues that have been most important to the committee, as well as just the process. Next committee meeting would be the 6th, where we would review this GC and CM discussion, as well as just an overview of SPC items. And then the architect RFP is due on the 9th, with special meeting potentially that next week to actually interview the architects, and if you're comfortable selecting one. If not, having a meeting that following week to finalize the selection. And then ultimately, the key goal is to have the architect award before the end of June to facilitate starting the work prior to that July 1st date. So as long as we're on this path, we won't have any problems hitting the macro schedule that we've laid out. Any questions on calendar, schedule, process before I get into the body of the RFP? Stop share so you can see everyone.
Did you update the RFP's schedule within it to match that? Because as of the last looking, it didn't, but yeah.
Yes, you'll see a highlight here in a second, which is
Okay.
just in case to remind myself, in case there are dates to change tonight.
Okay.
All right, then I will bring up the RFP here. So you should be seeing the Word file with Madison, Connecticut. Does everyone see that okay?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so the version of the RFP I sent out most recently included a lot of the sustainability changes, but I did highlight some of the items here in yellow just to quickly review with the committee some of the subsequent updates that had been made, some by Sharon and a couple of small tweaks with Woody and myself. So building description, a lot of this is just front-end material on this page. As George alluded to earlier, suggested earlier, some of that has been truncated to provide clarity to the architects. One of the items that was clarified based on the previous discussion with regard to fossil fuels was indicating a desire to not utilize fossil fuels and to focus preliminary design discussions on how to achieve that goal. The final determination should be done as part of that discussion process, bringing in the Board of Ed, the food service staff and vendors, et cetera, as well as facilities for any generator. But the point here is to put it front and center. That goal is that no fossil fuel should be used, and make that clear to the design team so they don't start designing.
Adam, you're still on the cover page.
Am I?
Yeah,
What about now?
Good.
Now you're
there
good.
you go.
There we go. Okay. So I was talking about this. So again, the goal here was just to highlight a lack of fossil fuels, or the desire to not utilize fossil fuels in the new building. Educational specifications, they will include the update in terms of classrooms, square footage, and the desire to have a more sustainable focus on the building. Project budget, to clarify something that Sharon had brought up with regard to budgets, just to clarify that they're designed into the construction and FF&E budget and not the total project budget. Project schedule. Currently, the delivery method is still listed as general contractor. Like I alluded to last time, the point there is to ensure that the architect is prepared to develop front-end specifications if CM is not selected. So that's the reason why it says general contractor here. However, if the committee eventually decides to go construction manager, that's contemplated as well. Scope of services. So here are some of the updates, including ensuring with a contemplated geo-exchange design as part of their focus, sustainability, typical code criteria, ensuring that they include the permits from DEEP if that's what's eventually required. Obviously, there's a goal to try to eliminate that review if possible, but if it ends up having to go that way, they'll have that baked into their services. Let's see, a lot of this is it's basically the same as what we had said, what I had sent out previously. Just some clarifications of verbiage. This is one of the elements that we had baked in as part of a lessons learned. So as the production supply chain issues become more and more prevalent, one of the issues that has grown in being a problem is with regard to basis of design items. So for example, lighting design, where an architect will say, here's a set of specifications for a manufacturer that we use as a basis of design for your light fixtures, and provide something like this. But with the increase in difficulty of procuring certain items, that has made that process more and more difficult to achieve a true equivalent, both in terms of performance and aesthetics. So this is baking in some verbiage that the architect needs to provide an actual specification of 3 vendors and 3 products, and not just go the route of, it's basic fit to the design, the bidders will figure it out. So that's one of the elements that we had baked in as part of the RFP. Site survey includes the adjacent lands to contemplate the water utilities, the wetlands, etc., as well as Ryerson for demolition. Here are the key changes that made with Woody. So one of the changes that was actually made today was with regard to who's owning, so to speak, the geo-exchange design components. So the RFP is set such that the architect will be responsible for designing the test willing and the well drilling and testing program identifying locations, but the wells themselves will be provided by the owner. So that way, it helps define some of the costs and avoid architect markup. But if the architect, messes up their design and additional wells have to be dug to test the system, that's back on the architect if they, need to change locations because they put the septic field in the wrong spot or something like that. So that was a change that was made today based on some input from Woody. Included here, the EUI equal to or less than 25 to help facilitate the getting of energy credits from Eversource or what have you. So that was baked into the RFP. Again, the lack of fossil fuels, clarification that LEED certification itself is not intended for the building. It just needs to be designed to Connecticut high performance building standards of LEED silver or higher. Because the flavor of the committee was geared towards not necessarily pursuing net zero as a specific target, I removed the verbiage for the dedicated energy consultant, which would cost a substantial amount of money, and instead just baked in the specific criteria up above in terms of EUI. Much of this is the same as previously issued. At the committee's request, I forgot to highlight this, but I did bake in a paragraph for desire for a virtual reality visualization based off of some of the discussions from the committee members. So this is put in here. It is listed as an add alternate in case that cost is exorbitant and the committee decides not to go that way. But the verbiage itself is captured one at each major milestone phase: schematic design, design development, and the construction document phase. So here we get into, for the presentation interview, verbiage that Sharon had indicated would be good to have to clarify some of the design intent. If it makes sense. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Before we read through it, can I give a little spiel about design, and can you indulge me for about 5 minutes? Like we indulged Woody about all the geo stuff. So I mentioned in my email and here about evidence-based design, and what that is science that has proven how spaces, forms, materials, colors, light, and all that affect the human condition. The girl from Tecton, that's what she does. That's what she talked about, is basically evidence-based design. And it's really cool that they have someone on staff that does that. As an example, I have 25 years experience in healthcare design, so I can use that as a really easy example to everyone will understand. When I was a kid and I broke my collarbone, I went to the hospital. It was white tile, bright lights, wood chairs, very, very sterile. 27 years later, I go to give birth in Middlesex Hospital in the maternity ward. It's wood looking vinyl, it's wood cabinets, it's wallpaper, upholstered furniture, curtains. And it's because they did scientific studies that showed that people heal faster in comfortable environments, more like home. And there have been all sorts of evidence design studies done for schools as well. And I think it's important that we stress whoever we hire uses that science so our children get the best spaces they need. We need to mention that. One of the things that I brought up before that Graham said, and why I want it in the minutes, is because he's kind of right. Architects will design to our clients' desired aesthetic, as long as the client knows what their desired aesthetic is. And we have not defined that. We made one little comment down there: sensitivity to the architecture of Madison and the adjacent neighborhood. What does that mean? I think we need to give them more to go on. We need to talk about the context of our town. We need to talk about what our town is when you drive through. What do you see? What do you feel? What do people experience? What do you think of when you think of Madison, Connecticut? And how will this school reflect that? And it is important, because I know when I was arguing with a guy I worked with once about details on federal style buildings, and on my way to the grocery store, I live on Neck Road, going to Stop and Shop, I stopped at every federal house and took a picture to show them the details, and I took 27 pictures. So we are a colonial town. We have federal style colonials, we have British style colonials, we have some Georgians, we have some Dutch colonials, we have capes, we have salt boxes. We have down by the shores, shingle style homes. Our downtown is colonial for the most part. I mean, everything we have in our town that defines our town design wise is a pitched roof. So what's really important to me, that I think should be important for all of us, is that the firms that we hire have experience doing that sort of aesthetic, because their details that they have in their computers are what they're going to use. And if they're known for designing beautiful brick boxes, they're going to have a plethora of details and experience designing parapets and EPDM roofs and the drains and the gutters and the lintels and the weep holes. And those details are going to be proven because they've done it over and over again. And Bill's going to have an easier life because the bricks aren't going to effervesce and the mortar's not going to fall out. And we're not going to have mold behind the walls because they've done the details and they know the details. So it is important what the design of this is going to look like, and that the firm who does it has experience in those sorts of shapes and styles. And that's why it is still loose, because yes, any firm can do it, but I want them to have some experience in it. I want them to show me what they're, or show us actually, the town, you know, what they can do and what they have experience in that fits within the vernacular of Madison. It will affect our cost. It'll affect our maintenance. It'll affect everything. So I think it is an important part of what we're doing on this team. It's as important as all the other parts. The most important part is that we have a school that functions for our kids. And we all know that. That's number one. And then everything else is making it happen. So this is what I wrote. The town of Madison has worked hard for many years to develop an image that is often referred to as a quintessential historic New England shoreline town. When talking to residents and visitors, various adjectives are repeatedly used to describe our town. Well-maintained, quaint, clean, beautiful, charming. We can add some more. Probably should throw colonial in there. The architectural firm selected should be prepared to utilize evidence-based design to incorporate the Board of Ed's vision statement found in the Ed spec, while reflecting and enhancing our town's image in the new school, being sensitive to the town's history, architecture, and the site's orientation. We request that within the presentation of your work, you provide examples within the same vernacular of the Madison's image. And I think that's important. I think we want them to get up there and show us that they've looked at our town. They've seen it, they felt it, they've driven through it, they understand it. And I think it's important that we put this in. So anybody have any other adjectives we can add to that? Because I think the more we give them, the better outcome we'll have. Comments, questions?
I think that's excellent, Sharon.
Yeah.
You give them a good starting point to, to really, at least a direction to start exploring, I guess. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Right. And I think we need to do that.
I agree. I like it.
Any more
right.
adjectives?
You want to add the word colonial in there?
I think I do.
Sure.
All right, I had
Depending on
Bob
where we
turned
put
off.
it.
He agreed too.
What was that?
I said I had Bob turned off. He said he agreed too.
Okay. Don't turn Bob off. So, all right. Maybe we put, okay, yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter where we put it, but it should probably be in there. So, thank you. I appreciate your time for letting me spew about what we got going. So, and actually, you know what I think might be helpful when I've worked with clients, my most successful projects are when the clients truly know what they want. And they come to me with pictures or Pinterest boards or whatever. It makes my job a lot easier and the job, our project go much quicker and smoother. Maybe as a committee, we should probably be thinking about what we think our vision of the context of the school is and pull some images and bring them into the meeting when we first meet with the architect, or maybe before we decide on the architect. And that way, we can have a benchmark to look at. I actually have a question for Woody. Woody, I walk Middle Beach Road every day and I go from West Wharf past East Wharf to Fence Creek and back. So I pass your house every single day and have since it was being built. And I know you had it designed all, I'm not sure if it was net zero or LEEDs or whatever. I read the article about it. But walking by it, I can tell you it is an absolutely stunning home. You hired somebody who did a really good job, but I bet you probably dictated some of that. And you have probably had a clear vision yourself as to what you wanted. And I think it doesn't matter the scale of the project. The more the client knows of what they want, the smoother and the better and the faster it goes. And I want to make sure we are kind of all on the same page and can guide them easily.
Thank you for those kind words. Seth has some additions that look good, but what I will say is it wasn't me. Typical to what I tend to focus on, mine was the energy and building and construction techniques and materials. My wife Ellen was key in that. But frankly, we spent the first 6 months after buying the property trying to figure out if we could save the house that was there. And when that became impossible to do for many reasons, we built a house in its image. So there are many people that thought we remodeled it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we thought that was the nicest compliment
That is
anybody
a nice
could make.
compliment. Yeah.
And of course,
Very much so.
it's very different. It's but the lines, the roof lines, the curvature of the front porch, all
Yeah,
of that was taken into consideration from the old house, including replicating many of the windows, the unusual windows that house had.
Oh,
So
kudos to you. That's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those things are really important. And the house, you can have it all. I mean, our
I think
house
so
is not,
too.
yeah, our house isn't really quite net zero for a number of reasons, but it's close. We have 2 electric cars, which doesn't help anything become net zero, but we have no gas bill.
Right.
And so it's very efficient, and yet people walk by and compliment it frequently. So I appreciate your kind thoughts and words. And
I
hope
enjoy walking by it. It's beautiful.
And now Adam, do you want to let Seth and I saw Katie had popped up too, make their
It's up to
comments?
George. Yeah. That'd be up to George and the committee, but that makes sense
Oh.
to me.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. You want to continue, Adam?
No, I think we should let Seth and Katie make their comments about Sharon's insertions. Don't you, George?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I didn't know if they were just commenting in writing or they wanted to voice it.
Well, Raquel can find out if they're
I
raising their
didn't see their
hand.
comments. I was too busy talking. I can't talk and read at the same
Go
time.
down to the bottom and hit chat.
Oh, it'll show it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any hands raised at the time
Okay.
for me, Katie or Seth, so I'm not sure if they want to speak or not.
The comments that Seth had indicated as potential additional adjectives were family-oriented, education-driven, environmental-minded, beach town, sports town.
We could add those because that is all true. I thought about education driven. I almost put in good education, but I thought, well, that doesn't reflect good education to say that. So I love it. Add them in.
And Katie largely just agreed with the expansion of this portion of the RFP.
I would just leave charming for last because that's the really hardest one to define. And that's why it's in quotes. So I think that's important that that's last. So.
And they clarified, they just wanted to chat, and they're not
Yep.
shy, so They just wanted to give you the input on the chat.
All right, well done, Sharon. Thanks, thanks for all that input and everybody else who chimed in.
You left
Great.
education driven, I think. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I didn't see you type it in. My bad.
No, catch me if you see me typing stuff. I'm going fast and taking chances sometimes, so. All right, so that portion was updated by Sharon. The evaluations are the same. And then, yes, these have been updated to reflect the updated schedule. So posting in a day or two, and then RFPs targeted for June 9th. RFP responses targeted for June 9th. Okay, and the rest of this is largely just boilerplate. Yes, and then just the covers for the appendices. So anything else on the RFP in terms of comments? Anything you want me to change? As you can see, I can do that in real time.
Adam, I have just a simple question. If we go from GC to CM, would that mean that we get a reduction in cost from the architects because some of that cost will be going to the CM?
I mean, in theory, there's the potential. I don't know that I would expect an architecture firm to change their price necessarily for something that specific. It is work. If it makes sense, the larger value is in preventing the change for the extra work versus something that they would just include. And if you asked them to scrape it out, they would reduce their price necessarily. It's one of these hard intangibles amongst the tens of thousands of pages of documents they'll create. You know, it's easier to seek a penny than it is to give one up.
Woody, I'd like to inject in here, Woody. I think a lot of it is not so much it changes the scope of their work, it just when it happens and how much happens at the tail end versus during. I think some of the stuff that CMs do happen before you would have gone out to bid. The specs are all still there. The contract documents and all the details are still there because they have to send them out to subs. So the CM just sends it out to subs. I don't think it changes their scope of work. I just think it modifies it.
Got it. Thank you.
To Sharon's point, they'd look at the division ones and the front end stuff that the CM produces to make sure there's nothing in there. So it's a 601.
Thank you.
So in terms of other documents, the appendices were issued to the shortlisted firms. I'm sorry, the bulk of the appendices were issued to the shortlisted firms to get them sort of taking in some of the technical background on the testing that was done, some of those more technical documents, traffic study, phase 1 environmentals, etc. The only appendices that have not yet been issued to the architect firms include the fee proposal form, which I'll just share here. It's just the one pager that they will actually put their cost responses onto. So you should be looking at it now. It's just this one pager with amounts. This is our standard breakout in terms of the various service packages. The one add alternate down here is for the VR walkthroughs that I had highlighted earlier. So this is largely, like I said, just boilerplate. Then the other appendices that have not yet been issued are the 3 AIA contracts. I have those handy if the committee wants to get a breeze through. The 3 contracts themselves are the AIA A201, which is it's actually the agreement with the contractor. Obviously, the actual construction contract is far away. The point of issuing that with this is to clarify some of the responsibilities during construction in terms of architect's ability to stop the work or reject portions of the work, that kind of thing. So it's included up front now to help clarify some of that relationship when it comes down the road. The AAB 102, which is the ostensibly the front end, if you will, to the architect contract that indicates insurance requirements, those types of elements. Point being, I will quickly screen share here. The AAB 102 and 201. Wait one moment, my computer's trying to Zoom and Word at the same time, and it's not liking it right now. So for the B201, which is what you should be looking, I'm sorry, 102, which is what you should be looking at right now. If I can get on my screen. The key thing that I wanted to highlight to the committee would be the inclusion of the RFP as part of the architect's responsibility. So everything we just walked through with the RFP is baked into the contract itself.
Good.
And is there anything else I highlighted on here for the committee? Pardon my scrolling.
I have a stupid, naive question. Who actually signs the contract with them? Is it the first selectman? Is it?
Typically the way, well, Bill looks like he's going to answer that for me.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious.
All this stuff goes through the Board of Selectmen. They do the final approvals and the contracts are usually signed by the first select woman.
Okay, I was just curious. I didn't know how it worked. Thank you.
One of the items that was clarified on here, I think Sharon, you pointed this out with regard to reimbursable expenses. The general gist is that for your day-to-day typical reimbursable expenses, travel to project sites, postage, those kind of ticky-tacky items, those are called out both in the RFP and in the B102 to be included as part of base services. So we're not litigating every 5-mile drive that someone has to do. But some of the more one-off expenses, for example, any permits, that kind of thing, if there's we want 50 sets of the documents printed, those would be potentially reimbursable as based on this list.
Yeah.
So that was just a little clarification in this document. And then anything else in this one to highlight? Again, just inclusion of the RFP. And then the final AIA contract, again, just briefly, is the B201. This is the more meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the architect's services. And some of the items that we've added in here based on lessons learned.
Nothing's showing.
Oh, I'm sorry. It does that every once in a while. It just pauses the share. I'm not sure why. Some of the items I highlighted in here just to point out to the committee based on lessons learned, and just some of our base contract verbiage. For the HVAC design, as part of schematic design, they'll provide 3 alternative strategies. So they're not just trying to snipe one, and if we don't like it, there's a redesign fee. They're to produce a spectrum that'll be part of the review process.
That's good.
We have boosted some of the verbiage with regard to comment responses. One thing that is my pet peeve for the design review process is when the architect will provide comments to, or responses to your comments, Collier's comments, other people's facilities comments, etc. And then sometimes the engineers just won't respond. Or they'll do a will comply, but never get back to what the actual resolution is. So this is intended to bolster some of that language, make it clear the architect needs to wrangle their engineers, get the responses in, and make it clear as part of acceptance of the document set. So if we said we needed something, we should have a comment response indicating what actually happened and making sure that it actually got in the drawings. We're not hunting and pecking. Another item I wanted to highlight out. That's just a cleanup highlight. Other consulting services. So right now the architect is on the hook for providing full geotechnical borings, exploration, test pits, etc. They're on the hook for providing the full site survey, so they are in control of that. And they need to get whatever it is they need to get to provide a comprehensive design. There to do the geo exchange test well planning. Drilling. And the add alternate for the virtual reality walkthrough. And then also, as Chuck and I previously mentioned, some beefed up language with regard to site visits during construction administration. So the typical is in the AIA contract is a weekly visit from the architect team. But what we've been finding lately with as building systems get more and more focused on energy efficiency, as buildings have more parts and pieces moving together, geothermal services, et cetera, it's often insufficient to just have the architect come out there or a designer that doesn't matter come out there. When you need the civil engineer out there, I don't need the architect out there talking about something that's not related to civil or mechanical or what have you. So this is beefed up to provide for a weekly architect site visit, and in addition to that, a weekly engineer or sub-consultant site visit. So at a minimum, twice a week, you've got someone putting eyes on it as pertinent to where we're at in construction. And I think that is it for this item. So any questions on the AIA contracts? And again, as George pointed out, those are going to be beaten up by lawyers with the final firm that's selected as part of negotiations. So that's not to say that they're not important, but really the critical index is, if it's in the RFP, if that's everything you want is in there, it's by definition in the contract.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Looking like there's no questions. Just to get this rolling, can we get somebody to make we have one comment coming in.
Seth wants to add Artstown. Now that the theater's backing up.
There you go. That's funny.
So I'll, if we can start this like we did with the minutes, if everybody's happy and satisfied and has had their say, if we can get somebody to make a motion and then second it, we can take any discussions about the RFP after that, and then hopefully vote once we're satisfied. So I'll open it for a motion to accept the RFP.
I make that motion to accept the RFP.
I will second it.
All right. Any discussion? Anybody want to add anything?
Just
Change
add the
anything?
word artsy into my list.
RC or Artstown?
Seth, are you okay with Artsy rather than Artstown?
Thank you.
That's a yeah.
Great.
All right. Sounds good. Anybody have any last say on that? And if not, we'll take a vote to accept the RFP and have it published. All right. I'll ask for a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Nobody. Okay. So Adam, you've got an RFP that you can distribute.
Perfect.
All right. Well done, everybody. Thank you for that. I guess we're at public comments again. So any more public comments in either in writing or verbally? Doesn't look like any. Okay. Any final remarks from anybody on the committee or others? Go ahead, Billy.
I'm just, we had a tentative date about the interviews of the firms, and there's going to be 4 firms. I think you want to decide that, maybe plan on that. I know there was some difference of opinions about splitting it up to 2 nights versus 1 night. I think it's a big deal. I think, the committee needs to make a decision and plan for it because it's going to come quickly. So did you have that on there, Adam? You're muted,
You're
Adam.
muted,
I can't
Adam.
hear you.
You're muted, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good point. So currently, based on the draft calendar schedule, the 6th and the 20th are regular meetings. Those are already established. Based on the date of the RFP, targeted for the 9th, it might make sense to have a special meeting here on the 13th, and that would be the interviews. And that way that would allow for, if there's just one standout and the committee is good to move forward, you can select it that night. Alternatively, if it's a long night and people want to sleep on it and think on it, they can do so at the next regular meeting. But to Bill's point, it would be good to establish, if you wanted to establish this as the architectural interview date on the 13th, do that now, and that way the architectural firms can plan for it and have their staff available, et cetera.
Are we giving them a set time for the interview, or how does that work?
We would do it just the same way as well. I would recommend the committee can do it the same way as previously with regard to standardized interview slots and just breaking them out. And you arrive at 5:30, and the next firm arrives at what do we think, like 45 minutes potentially for a half hour and maybe some Q&A. So 4 45-minute interviews.
Yeah, I have a list of questions this time, so.
Is that enough time?
I don't think it is. I think we need a full hour for each one. I hate to say it.
Me
But-
too, because, I mean, how do we, that's a really long meeting.
It is a long meeting unless we start earlier. And that's hard for everybody. I work too. So,
It could alternatively be another special meeting. If you want to have potentially something on the 15th or something like we did before, and it's just split up 2 and 2.
I'd rather go with a long meeting just because then I have all the information at once. It's not a week apart, same questions. It's not exactly the same when you break them up a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah, I
in that
agree.
regard, yeah.
I'd rather
can
take
we-
maybe a break in the middle a little bit for us, a 15-minute break or something like that, and have 2 and 2.
Sure. Does the 13th at least work for everybody if we go that route? Does everybody have that day available?
I do, yeah, not a problem.
I can make it work, but as long as that works for everybody, we can determine a start time and whatever. We've got time to plan that out. We don't have to have it locked in.
June 13th, I won't be here. You guys
Uh-oh.
can do it without me. I'm gonna be away that week. So, I mean, I don't think I'm key for the selection of the architect. I just want you to know that.
Well, thanks.
Although I think you're always key, Bill.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely opinionated. I don't know if I'm key. but I don't think
Well,
I'm-
aren't we all?
I support you doing it on the 13th without me. I just think it's important. I
I
can
do.
Zoom in if it's a Zoom meeting, but I think you're gonna do it in person and I wouldn't want to put the stress on it.
No, I
Okay.
think we definitely have to do it in person.
Yep. All right. Well,
I
let's
think you
pencil
do
in the
have to do it.
13th.
I'm just concerned about how late it, in terms of whether you have a brain left by 9:30 or 10 o'clock,
Well,
starting that early.
we could do what Bob suggests. We could do 2 hours, take, a 20-minute break and, sandwiches, nothing elaborate, but you guys could take a little food break and, get up and stretch your legs. We could make another room so you can walk, walk. We're only talking about a 20-minute break and then you guys might be fresh again. That's just a suggestion.
I mean, I would personally prefer to do it over 2 nights. Staying out that late for me would be difficult. I tend to have a very early morning meeting on Tuesday mornings, and it could be brutal. I don't know how much at some point your brain does stop functioning when you're
Yeah.
up way past your bedtime. So I think it would also not be necessarily fair to the architectural firms when, okay, lucky you get to go at 8:30, because I'm sure they have their own issues with childcare and sleep. So I think it just makes sense to do it over like the 13th and the 15th, like we did before, seemed to work well. If we're going to have them each 45 minutes to an hour, it gives them plenty of time. It gives us plenty of time to ask questions and to study the information.
And to that point, it would give us more time after the second night to discuss it. Because if we try to discuss it after 4 meetings, we're gonna be tired and it might go on. And then to wait a week before we discuss it again, I think is too long.
Yeah.
I think maybe I think Amanda's right, splitting it up to give us more time at the end to vote or discuss it is probably better. And 2 days is not that far of a gap.
Sure.
I mean,
Do we have to make
especially
that-
with, especially
Go-
with
go,
the
Brandon.
similar questions and things like that. So the format we used worked. I would normally agree with Bob, but I just think you're dealing with 4 hours, 4.5 hours with a break, and then half hour to talk about it. You're really late. You're past 11.
And that's after a full day of work for
Yep.
most people involved, including the architects who are trying to present. So we want to get a good product at the end. So
Sure.
I think, you know, giving everybody a little breathing space would make a good product. So just my 2 cents.
Adam,
we
can
don't,
we decide to finalize this at another point, or do you think we should finalize it tonight?
If there's general consensus, I would recommend finalizing tonight if possible. So that way to kind of amplify Amanda's point with the architect teams having to plan out. I already reached, I forgot if it was from a shortlisted firm or not, but there was already an early inquiry about the schedule because they had people taking vacations and other projects and commitments and whatnot. Not to say that the architect team shouldn't be responsive to when they're selected for interviews, but the more advanced notice they can have, the better they can produce their products and develop something. For
Yeah, and it's summertime, graduations, people have lives. So I agree with Adam. This is a big deal. We need to put it ahead of time. And that's why I brought it up, because I knew that there was some controversy amongst the group. So I think you need to decide and set the dates and the schedule. It's really important.
well, why don't we do this? If nothing else, let's just tell the firms that the interviews are going to be on the 13th and possibly the 15th, and they can book those open, right? And we'll decide, we'll figure it out, whether it's at the next meeting or whatever we do. It's we're missing one member and
That's
what,
probably
two
a good way to handle it. Tell them to keep them open. Are we going to just randomly select who goes first, second, third, fourth, or how are we going to do that? Just draw from a hat?
We could. I don't know of any tried and true method. I know it's
Yeah.
reverse alphabetical order. We did one time there at the last meeting and all that
Right.
stuff. But yeah, we can. It's a lot of times it's first come first serve. You
Right.
give them the slots, and whoever calls first, that's who they get their pick.
By the way. Yeah, because I think the first and the last spots are the 2 prime spots.
Sure. Sure, I agree.
George, what are your thoughts? 1 day or 2 days?
I'm a fan of 1 day as well, even though it's a long day, just because I hear the same things. But I'm not going to die on that hill, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I don't know. I'd rather just get it down now. If we're gonna do 2 days, I'm okay with that too. 3 of the 5 of us are 2, and I'll go with that too. But I think we should decide. Let them
Sure.
know. And set it up for them, their dates. So I'd be
Sure.
in favor of doing the 2 days. That's fine.
All right. Why don't we, is everybody good with 2 days? Does anybody have an objection to that? Okay. Well, why don't we, by consensus, Adam, why don't we make it 2 days, 2 per day, and we'll leave it to you to figure out the schedule.
Okay, I will just so everyone's aware. I'll probably do regular alphabetical, so that'd be the converse of the inverse alphabetical that was done the first time to try to provide some, not playing favorites necessarily, just doing the inverse of what we did last time. If that pleases the committee, because otherwise it gets a little messy with, well, I wanted that slot, well, my person's on vacation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That's fine. Yep.
I would change my name at this point if I was the architect firm to like Zebra Architects.
Acme.
Very good. Okay, I will set the
All right.
vote for the 13th and the 15th. It sounds like 45 minutes plus 15 minutes of Q&A for an hour total, and then alphabetical order and in person.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. I think it was important you guys established that, especially since I'll be away and I want to make sure we set the meeting up and you have coverage. So I appreciate that.
Sure, sure. No, thanks for keeping us honest, Billy, and working in the right direction.
Well, and I think it's key because then the Board of Selectmen will know, we'll be getting on the agenda. We'll have the architectural firm on board by the end of the month. I was pushing for the first meeting, but didn't happen. Okay.
All right, well, sounds good. So any more remarks?
Looks like you got some comments. I didn't read them, but it looks like there's some chat there. I missed it. Anything? we
All
need to
good.
read?
No.
Yeah. Well,
It just says when graduation is for hand.
Oh, it's on the 14th. Is that the Tuesday?
Yep.
Yep, between our meetings.
yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
Well, that's good.
Right
Well,
at
I'll just
that
make
needle.
yeah, that's right. I'll just make a closing remark and thank everybody for their input. And it's, really good coalescing of all the pieces of this RFP. So thank you very
Yeah.
much. It's been a
Really good process. I think we have a top flight RFP now. Thank you, Adam.
yeah, I do.
Yes, thank you, Adam. I think you're working really hard and doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent input from everybody, and thanks for everybody's willingness to work together and bend where we need to and all that stuff. It's much appreciated. So with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
I have one other thing.
Oh.
Just
All right,
to
Billy.
confirm, the interviews will be in person. I'll have the IT department there too, because they'll be doing some presentations way outside my comfort zone anyway. So I'll have the IT, and we'll do in person only. I'm the only the public can come to those. And then the Zoom portion will be only the members of the committee, such as the liaisons that can't make it, or a committee member. Is that, just to confirm, that's the plan?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off with a
Nope,
motion.
no
Right.
worries.
Sure.
No worries.
All right, I'll move, we close.
All right.
Hey, George, should you and I just stay on?
yeah, we stay on for an hour and a half. All right, anybody want to second the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Bob
All right,
seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Yep.
night.
Take care,
Thank
all. See you soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.